I'm lucky, you know. I got good neighbours. One of my neighbours down the road, he was out looking last week for a birthday present for his wife, and he couldn't think what to get for her. So he got into the cosmetic counter of one of our stores, and the assistant was very helpful, suggesting this and that. No, nothing went right. Then she said, what about a nice lipstick? No, he said, no. She said, your wife don't like lipstick then. He said, well, tell you the truth, I don't know whether she likes it or not. I don't think she could keep her mouth shut long enough to put it on. She's a very nice little woman, really. He got home last Friday and she had an awful sore throat. And he said, now look, you aren't going to stay here all the weekend like this. We'll have a quick cup of tea and I'll take you down the doctor's. He'll give you something for this. So off they went. And the doctor said, yes, he could give her something to ease that. He said, now you're here, I'd like to do a little experiment. And he took out some little short plastic tubes. Now he said, I want you to put one of these on your tongue and don't speak for 10 minutes. So the husband said, could he buy a few to take home? I was in post office getting my pension last week, and the lady in front of me was buying her TV licence. Well, the girl stamped the licence and she paid the money and the lady put the licence in her bag. And she looked at the girl and she said, could I have a few onions to go with this? So the girl said, did you say onions, madam? She said, yes, I did. I've now paid you £86.50 for a load of tripe, and I had a bit of extra work to do today because my son was here to dinner. He wasn't very young, you know, when he got married. He came home to me one day, out of the blue. Oh, he said, Mother, I've now found some handsome little maid. She's 1 in 1,000. Well, when I looked at her, I thought she was 1 in a raffle. I believe her mother was a little bit simple too, because I took her up to Plymouth one day and we was doing some Christmas shopping. Well, I wanted to go one department, she wanted to go another. So I left her down the bottom of the escalator. Now I said, you go up and do what you want to do, I'll go down in the basement. Well, I went and I was back in about half an hour. She was still stuck up in the same place. Well, I said, you been upstairs, and dear? She said, no, I can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? Afraid of the escalator, Harry? She said, no, but read that notice. And when I looked, see, it said dogs must be carried. She said, I can't go up there because I haven't got a dog. Oh, poor little soul, I was a bit sorry for her, really. I had a lovely evening last week. Went out with our old folks club to dinner. Well, we had soup, smelling handsome it was, and steaming hot. But you know, there was a great fly in the middle of mine. Pretty off, don't it? One of their blue bottles. So I said to the waiter, excuse me, dear, but there's a great fly in my soup. He said, don't worry now about that, Miss Rosewarne. He won't drink very much. Well, they brought in the main meal. And I tell you, I thought it was vegetarian. I couldn't see no meat nor no gravy. I thought, well, you've got to eat because there's nothing else here. Well, when the waiter came round for our plates, he said, how did you find your steak, madam? I said, I was lucky, really. I moved a Brussels sprout and there he was. Well, we had a bit of ice cream and cup coffee, and then they said we'll play a few games. Well, the vicar was there. He said, well, first of all, he said, we'll all sit down and see which one of us can make the ugliest face. Well, I never seen such contortions in all my life. And he looked around at everybody, and then he looked at me. He said, well, Mrs Rosewarne, you've won, dear. Oh, I said, I won playing. Well, then they started to play Postman's Knock. Well, I was delighted. And, of course, they played it with numbers. There wouldn't have been much chance for me else, but we had numbers, you see. And eventually my number was called out, and I went out. And some dear little man there was out there. So I said, now, look, dear, you needn't worry, because I've got my kiss-proof lipstick on. He said, Mrs Rosewarne, dear, you got a kiss-proof face. Oh, my son's musical. He'd love music. go all round to see concerts he do. Well, he thought he'd like to go in a male voice choir. But like I said, you can't go into a choir unless you have your voice tried a bit. I went along to the conductor of one of our choirs and I said, look, would you listen to and sing? Tell me what you think. Oh, he said, Mrs Rosewarne, bring it up. Well, he put my son to sing a hymn. And do you know, before he got to the end of the second verse, that man had the tears running down his face. Oh, I said, he's some moved. So when he finished, I said, what about it, and do you think he'll ever make a tenor? He said, Miss Rosewarne, he'll be lucky if he ever make 30 bob. I remember when I was young, we used to have horse and carts and donkey and carts, of course, before your time. And down in Truro Street one day, old donkey, I suppose he'd been overworked, he dropped down dead in the street, Well, of course, policemen come on, looked and he said, oh, yes, the donkey's dead. Now, he said, I want 3 or 4 of you strong men to get a rope and pull this donkey up Gas Street. Well, it was hard work pulling that great donkey from Truro Street up Gas Street. So one man said to the policeman, what do you want me to do this for? And well, he said, I got put a report in about this, and I can't spell Truro Street. That's like fun. I'm some proud of they 2 children. The youngest one started down play school. He dearly loved it. And the lady said to him the first morning he went, are you the oldest in your family, dear? He said, no, father's years older than I am. Do you know the oldest boy? He was doing his homework one day, and his mother was out in the kitchen ironing. And all of a sudden he came out to her. He said, Mother, where did you come from? Oh, she said, the stork brought me. He said, what about Granny? Yes, she said, stork brought her too. He said, and me. That's right, she said. So he went back to his homework and he wrote down, we hadn't had a natural birth in our family for 3 generations. I believe he's going to do well. A friend came in to see me last week. He said, I've had some experience. I was driving along our bypass road and going on, lovely afternoon, no problem, not much traffic or anything, and he was travelling a bit, see? And all of a sudden, something passed his car. And he said, I couldn't understand what it was because it looked like a chicken. And he thought, well, it couldn't possibly be a chicken. Anyhow, he watched it. It passed his car, passed 2 or 3 other cars, and then eventually it jumped over the edge into a field. Well, he was so interested that he pulled up in the first lay-by, went back, and went over in the very same place as this little fowl or whatever it was jumped over. And there was a man working in the field. So he said to him, look, I'm very sorry, but something jumped over in this field just now and went at terrific speed. He said, I thought it looked like a chicken. Well, the man said 'twas a chicken. Well, he said, how in the world could a chicken go at such a rate as that? Well, the man said he got 6 legs. He said, I've never heard of it. Well, the man said, we're 6 of us in our family. And every time we'd have roast chicken, everybody wanted a leg. So I thought if I could breed one with 6 legs, everybody would be happy. Well, the man said, that's wonderful. What do they taste like? Well, the farmer said, I don't know. We haven't been able to catch one yet. A relative of mine, about the same age as me, she was going out in America for a holiday, and of course she bought a few new clothes and that. She wanted to look as well as she could. And then she looked in the mirror. She was trying on this dress, and she looked in the mirror, and she thought, my God, I got some lines in my face. They may not think I look so old as that. I got a good mind to see if I can have my face lifted. Well, she went down to one of our beauty parlours, and she saw the beautician, and she looked at her, and she thought, oh, I suppose I can do something by her. Well, anyway, gave her a proper facelift and made my friend look really nice. Double chin was gone and all. But it was all wasted, because when she gave her the bill, her face dropped again. Now, another friend and her husband bought an isolated cottage out in the country. They don't see nobody hardly. But one day last week, one of these high-pressure salesmen called on her. And as she opened the door to him, before she could say a word, He emptied a plastic bag of dirt in on her little hall carpet. Looked as if it had come from a vacuum cleaner. No, she looked quite frightened. He said, "Madam, don't be alarmed. I've got a machine here that'll remove every speck of that dirt." And he said, "If it don't, I'll eat the dirt." She said, "Well, hang on a minute and I'll go in and get a spoon, because we aren't connected to the electricity here." I noticed she was wearing a rather pretty locket. So I said to her, "That's a lovely little locket you're wearing, dear. New, is it?" "Yes," she said, "I had it from America." So I said, "Is there anything in it then?" "Yes, Miss Rosewarne, a lock of my dear husband's hair." "Oh," I said, "I didn't know he was gone." She said, "No, he hadn't, dear, but his hair have." Now, I live in the area down at Camborne, the Guri area of Camborne. And today it's as pleasant and peaceful a place as you'll find anywhere. But many years ago, it was a bit rough down there. And these two Guri men died, and of course got up to the pearly gates. And Saint Peter was waiting for them. He said, "Where have you two come from?" "We come from Guri." "Oh," he said, "well, you'll have to wait a minute. We have had too many from down there." He said, "I got to go in and get my book." Well, when St. Peter came back with his book, the two Guri men were gone, and so were the pearly gates. Now, a little couple I know who lived down near there, they had some new people come to moved in opposite them. Nice couple. Well, the older couple had lived there for years, and this particular morning they were having breakfast. And the woman, the older woman, she said to her husband, "I don't know what you're like," she said. "You aren't a bit demonstrative. That little couple that are come to live opposite, he'd give his wife a hug and a kiss on the step every morning before he go to work." She said, "Why don't you do that?" He said, "I don't know the woman." She told me they were selling cracked eggs in a shop. She said, "My dear Miss Rosewarne, 5p a dozen cheaper." So I went down and I said, "Can I have a couple of dozen of they eggs, and dear?" Oh, the girl said, "I'm sorry, Miss Rosewarne, but they're all gone." "Well," I said, "I aren't no hurry. Won't take ye long crack few more, will it?" Now, very often I'd got doctor's surgery, especially winter time, 'cause you're saving fire and light home, and you're always meeting somebody up there you can have a bit of chat with. Now, I went in last week, so I said, "Doctor, I got some sore throat. I believe I got laryngitis." He said, "Well, why aren't you whispering?" Well, I said, "Didn't know secret. I don't understand these young doctors." And I said, "Now, look here a minute. Now I'm here. I'm not going to be rushed. I'm having a lot of trouble with this knee. Especially going upstairs." I said, "My dear, 'tis murder." "Now, look," he said, "Mrs. Rosewarne, I can't do nothing about that, dear. That's rheumatism, and it to come with old age, and you'll have to put up with it." I said, "That's funny, you know, because this knee is the same age as that one, and yet this one don't ache." Now, we have had a lovely summer. And another of my neighbours, he's a dear old gentleman, he was sitting down in our park one afternoon. The sun was shining, the children were playing around on the swings and that, and he was feeling very happy. And all of a sudden, a little frog jumped up on the seat beside him. Well, he sort of smoothed the little frog down. He was shining in the sun. And the frog, like they do, started to speak. He said, "If you kiss me, I shall turn into a beautiful princess." Well, the old man never took any notice. And the frog thought he might be a bit deaf. So he repeated it. He said, "If you kiss me, I'll turn into a beautiful princess." Old man said, "I heard you the first time. At my age, I'd rather have a talking frog." Do you know, a friend of mine was telling me about her little girl. She was a little bit worried about this child. She was always eating anything that was going, always eating chocolates and all. Well, mother said to her, "It's no good for you to go on like this all the time. You'll be putting on too much weight, dear." Now, she said, "You come over and sit down with me a minute." Mother took a piece of paper and a pencil, and she drew a lovely slim lady. Now, she said, "That's what you'll grow up to look like if you don't eat between meals. You can have as much as you want at the table. Don't eat between meals.
Then she drew a photograph of a very fat lady, you see. Now, she said, that is the difference, and that is what you will look like if you keep eating like you're doing now. You don't want to look like that, do you? And the little girl said no, and that was it. Well, sometime later, they got on the bus, and a heavily pregnant lady got on. She was very large. And, of course, this little girl looked at her after all that she'd been told, you see. And when the lady sat down, she said, oh, I can see what you've been up to. My friend had a little grandson staying with her for half term. So the first night he got ready to go to bed. So she said, do you say your prayers like a good little boy every night, my love? He said, no, I don't say them, Granny. Mummy says them for me. So she said, what does your mummy say? He said, every night she'd say, thank God he's in the bed.
Now, there was a little farmer's daughter. She got engaged to a boy who worked in a bank. Up Plymouth, I believe it was. Didn't know nothing about farming at all. Now, she had a lovely home and she dearly loved her family. But when this boyfriend's people were coming down for the first time to tea, she was a little bit worried. So she said to her mother, I hope everything's going to be all right. They don't know nothing about the country. She said, for instance, I wish we could do something about father. So mother said, what do you mean? Well, she said, he's so Cornish. They'll never understand what he's saying. And she said, another thing, he's always talking about manure. I wonder, mother, could you get him to say fertilizer? So mother said, well, I'll try. But she said it'd have took me 15 years to get him to say manure. I do a lot of reading. I'd go up library 2 or 3 days a week sometimes. And I've been waiting for a book up there. Well, I went in today. And the librarian said to me, oh, Mrs Rosewarne, I'm glad to see you, dear. That book you've been waiting for is here. So she gave it to me, and when I looked at it, it looked as if somebody had dropped a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something on it. So I thought, oh, well, it don't matter. But as she was booking it out to me, I said, bit dirty, isn't it, dear? Well, she said, I don't know, Miss Rosewarne, I haven't read it. Well, then I went on to the shoe shop. I took a pair of shoes in to be repaired. So I said to the man, can he do anything with these for me, dear? He said, Lilla Miller, Miss Rosewarne, we'll burn them. Well, I know a Cameron man, a very keen supporter of the rugby club, and he told his wife not long ago, he said, if I should die out of Cameron, mind you bring me home on that bypass road, don't you bring me through Redruth. I was talking to a friend, he was quite ill, and I was ringing him, just to try and cheer him up a bit. And he was a Redruth man, but he was staying out of Redruth at that time. So I said to him, I've been in Redruth this afternoon. So he said, oh, where did you go in there? And I said, well, do you know, I went to Murdoch House. And if anybody had asked me where Murdoch House was, I couldn't have told them. So he said, well, if they told you it was down by the public toilets, you would have known, wouldn't you? And I said, no, because I don't stay in Redruth long enough to go to the toilet. It was raining by this time, so I decided I believe I'll go on by bus. And of course the bus was packed, and I had a lot of shopping with me, dripping umbrella, and you know how big I am. Anyhow, the only empty seat was by a very little man. So I thought, well, I'm going to sit down. So I plunked down beside him, shook him up a bit. He didn't like it. So he turned round to me and he said, it's a pity these buses don't charge passengers according to their size. Well, I said if they did, they wouldn't bother to stop to pick you up. Now, there was a very, very old gentleman who died. And he got up to St. Peter and he thought he was going to walk right in, you see, because he was a little bit pompous. So St. Peter said, here, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm come, he said, and I'm going in. He said, you can't go in like that. He said, you've got to make a note of all your sins before you go in. Well, the man said, I haven't committed no sins. Now, he said, that's your first one, pride. Now, he said, I'm going to give you a packet of chalk. And you see that flight of stairs down there? I want you to go down each stair and put a chalk mark on each step for a sin that you remember you've committed down on earth. Oh, the man said, won't take me very long. So he took his chalk and he started going down this long flight of steps, making a mark on each step. He was amazed how many things that he'd done which were wrong when he started to think back. Well, he was getting very tired going down all these steps, and then there was a turn in the stairs. And he thought, well, I dare say I'm coming to the end now. And as he got down there, he saw one of his former vicars coming up. So he thought, oh, now I must be nearly down the bottom. He's on his way back. So he said, I'm glad to see you, sir, because you know, I must be nearly down the bottom now. He said, no, you're nowhere near the bottom yet. I'm only going back for more chalk. My little granddaughter, she went Sunday school. She'd go every week. She's only about 4. And the teacher was telling them about Adam and Eve and the story of the garden and trying to let them know how the world was formed. So then she thought, well, I better ask them a question or two to see how much they remember. So she said, now tell me the name of the first man on earth. Every hand went up, Adam. So she thought, well, it shows they were listening. Now she said, what about the name of the first woman? Everybody blank, not a sound. So she said, now come along. Surely you know the name of the first woman. She said, think of the apple. And my little granddaughter said, I know, Granny Smith. They had a bit of trouble in this little village church. A lady came home from America, and she wanted to give something to the church in memory of her forefathers who lived there years ago. And instead of asking the vicar what he wanted, she went out and ordered a very ornate font. Well, it was very beautiful, but see, they had a font in the church already. Well, they couldn't do anything about it. They had to accept it. So the vicar said, well, the one they had was as you came in the church, so they would put this one up in the front near the altar. Well, then this lady and all her friends came for the dedication of the font, see, before they went back to America. So the vicar thought he'd better soak them up a bit. So he said how very kind it was of them to present this beautiful font. He said, we're very lucky in this church now. We've got 2 fonts, one in the front and one in the back. Now, he said, I shall be able to baptize the babies at both ends. I was staying last winter. I was feeling a bit lonely home, so I thought, well, I'll go away and stay with a few friends through the worst of the winter. And we had some bitter weather. And one morning, this boy was out in the road starting his motorbike. Well, he couldn't start it, see, because it'd been out all night and the engine was cold. The noise it was making, he had everybody out of their beds looking through the window, babies crying and all. Well, his language was, you can't describe it. Well, the vicar was going down the road with his little dog. And he heard this boy, and he said, well, he couldn't leave it past, you see. So he went across to him, and he said, now, look, young man, I know you're very frustrated. You can't start that bike, and you're waiting to go to work. But that terrible language isn't going to get you anywhere. Now, he said, I want for you to be quiet just for 2 or 3 seconds, and we'll have a word of prayer. Well, he was ever such a nice boy, but he didn't really want a word of prayer 7 o'clock on this bitter morning, you know. Anyway, he stayed put for the vicar. He respected him. And the vicar said 2 or 3 sentences. And that boy pushed the starter on the bike, and the bike went off like a bird. And the vicar watched it go, and he said, well, I'm damned. When I was downtown last week about my coat, I noticed a young man sitting down by the fountain playing a guitar and singing. Well, there was a young policeman on duty, so he went over to him. He said, have you had permission to sing in the street like this? He said, no, I'm sorry, I didn't know I had to. Well, the policeman said, I'm sorry about this, but he said, you'll have to accompany me. Well, he said, I'll do my best. What are you going to sing? A few weeks ago, it was a lovely sunny afternoon, so I walked down as far as our park, and I was sitting down, and somehow I felt a bit lonely, and I was shedding a few tears. And a person came on who knew me, and she sat down and she said, why are you so upset, dear? Well, I said I was feeling a little bit sad because there's no man in my life. Well, to my surprise, she sat down beside me and started to cry too. I said, "Oh, whatever's the matter?" "Well," she said, "Mrs. Rosewarne, you're crying because there's no man in your life, dear, and I'm crying because there's no life in my man."
Another friend of mine, she took her little grandson to chapel for the first time. He'd never been before. So when they came around with the collection plate, he said, "Don't pay for me, Granny, because I'm under 5. These two men were going home from work one night. One said to the other, "Coming down club night, have a game of snooker." He said, "No, not tonight." He said, "I'll tell you where I'm going tonight. I'm going up Doctor's." He said, "I don't like the look of my missus." So his friend said, "You hang on, I'll come with you. I hate the sight of mine."
Now, this lady in the park, she was telling me that she'd been to see her great-grandchild, very proud of it. And when she got there, the little baby was being bathed. So she looked in and she said, "Oh, some handsome baby. What is it, and dear, little boy or little girl?" So her granddaughter said, "My dear Granny, your eyesight's some bad, isn't it?" She said, "'Tin my eyesight, dear, 'tis my memory." Now, a neighbour of mine have just had a present from America. Oh, he came out to tell me all about it. Oh, he said, "I've had a lovely present. A camera, Miss Rosewarne, a beauty. And 'tis some fast. I can even catch my missus with her mouth shut." This lady'd been a widow for a long time, and one day she was going through some papers, and she found a lovely photo of her husband. She thought, well, I believe some of the members of the family would be delighted to have a copy of this photo. So she went down to the photographer and asked him if he could take off some copies, and he said, "Yes, of course I can." She said, "There's only one thing about that photo that I don't like, because my husband very rarely wore a hat. Said, I wonder, could you remove the hat?" So he said, "Oh, yes, we can do all sorts now with photography." He said, "Which side of his head did your husband part his hair?" "Well," she said, "you'll see that for yourself when you take his hat off, won't you?" We've got dear little Butcher down Camborne. He's on his own, but he thought perhaps if he could have a help for a couple of hours of a Wednesday afternoon, it would help him a bit with the cleaning up. So he couldn't afford very much, see, so he advertised for a boy for 2 hours, one afternoon a week. £3. Well, 2 or 3 boys came. This first one, he seemed quite nice, so the man said, "Well, look, I know it isn't much money, but 'tis all I can afford to pay for the time." Boy said, "That's all right, it'll be a bit of pocket money for me." He said, "I wouldn't sneeze at £3. So the butcher said, "Well, when are you going to start?" Well, he said, "I can start right away. I've got nothing to do." He said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what put you to do now I've took you on and all. Can you dress a bird?" Well, he said, "Not on £3 a week." I had my little grandson staying with me, and I was amazed because I wanted to go to a wedding down in the village, because he was some posh wedding, everybody was going. So he didn't want to go, I don't want to go. I said, "Well, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a bag of confetti, and you can throw it at the lady when she'd come out the church." Well, he's glad to throw anything, so that made him go. He sat out there into the road to watch everything, you know. Well, I turned my head away for a minute to look at something, and do you know, as soon as that little bride came in the church with her father to go up to the aisle, my little grandson went out and threw the confetti all over her. That was at the beginning of the service. The minister conducted the service. He was a very nice man, but he was telling me that he went before he left his old circuit. His wife said to him, "You really ought to have a new suit." She said, "That one is some shabby, and you're going down to meet all these new people, and you'll have reception meetings and all." Well, he meant to, but he was so busy, he didn't have time. Well, when he got down to our circuit, he found that one of the stewards was a outfitter, tailor and outfitter. Oh, he thought, "That's grand, he'll do a good job for me, maybe a bit cheaper." Well, this man did. He measured him and put the suit on, and the minister said he'd never felt more comfortable in a suit. But do you know, he never mentioned nothing about paying. And the tailor thought, well, I can't go on forever waiting for this money, minister or no. I'll give him another week, and then I'm going to ask him. Well, nothing was said. So when they were coming out from the service the Sunday night, the minister was shaking hands with them all, and this man thought, now's my chance. So he said, good night, sir. He said, don't you forget, you was naked and I clothed you, you know. And the minister said, yes, and you were a stranger and I took you in. Now, I know there's a lot of people in this audience tonight who are keen WI members, and I am myself. And last week, I went to see one of our committee members. Well, she wasn't home. Her husband opened the door. He said, no, Mrs. isn't home. He said, my girl, he said, she's gone out about the WI. Oh, I said, well, that's all right. He said, it isn't all right at all, Miss Rosewarne. He said, to make me miss, she's always out on the WI business. I've no patience with it. I said, you've no patience with the WI? Oh, I said, we just stand for home and country. He said, well, I don't know nothing about the country, but my missus is never home. Another dear old couple I had to visit, and he had a very bad cold. And his wife said, now, I'm going to get the doctor, she said, because if you were to leave this go on, you'll have bronchitis before you know it. Well, he hated doctors. So he said, well, if you get the doctor, I shan't speak to him. Well, Mother never listened. She rang the doctor, and when he heard the doctor come, he turned over, buried his head in the pillow, seeing he wouldn't look up. And he wasn't looking very well, and he never had his teeth in and all. And this young doctor was in a hurry, so he came in and he looked at him. Oh, he said, Madam, I believe your husband is dead. Well, he thought he'd better move, but this time he said, don't be so silly, I'm not dead at all, I'm all right. So his wife said, now look, lie down and don't argue. The doctor to know more about these things than you do. Now, as most of you to know, there's always a bit of friendly rivalry between Cameron and Redruth, especially on the rugby field. Now, years ago, when a lot of Cornish men emigrated, 2 Cameron men went South Africa, and they were lodging together. And, of course, in those days, letters took a long time, no airmail like there is now. And when they had a letter, they were quite excited. So one day one had one, but not the other. And the other one was watching them read this letter. And he saw his face alter, so he said, you got bad news, Avian boy. He said, bad news, I should think I have. My little sister home in Cameron have been and married a coloured man. Oh, the other one said, my dear life, that ain't nothing worry about. He said, my sister home in Cameron went and married a Redruth man.
This couple were coming up to their golden wedding. And they got on all right in a way, you know, they stuck together, but they used to argue and bicker all the time. So they wondered what the family were going to do for this golden wedding. And one day the daughter came to see them. And she said, now look, I know your golden wedding is coming up, but we are not going to do anything for you unless you stop all this silly bickering and arguing. You don't mean anything, but it's all on the surface, and it's a habit. Well, of course, this shook them because they wanted their celebrations. So Father said, what do you want us to do? She said, well, what I would like you to do is to come with me and go down and see a counsellor. And I'm sure they can sort things out. Well, they didn't think very much about that, but down they went. And the counsellor hadn't been talking to them very long before he realised that all this was on the surface. Underneath, they were all right. So he said, now, I think your wife is lacking affection, and I'm going to do something that I have never done before in all my experience. And he went across and he put his arms around this lady and kissed her, and she was delighted. So then he looked at the husband. Now he said, this is what your wife needs, at least 3 times a week. So the man said, well, all right, I'll bring her down Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. This young man went into a pub and he ordered a double whiskey. Well, of course, they gave it to him. He drank it back in one gulp, put the glass back on the bar. Now, he said, you know, with what I got, I shouldn't have drunk that. So the barman said, why, what have you got? He said, only 10p in my pocket. Now, I must tell you the story about this little cat. This cat got very, very old and eventually died and got up to heaven. Now, St. Peter was there and he was very fond of cats. So he said to this cat, when you were down on earth, was there anything you would have liked that you didn't get? Well, the cat said, I was never pampered like a lot of animals were down there. In fact, I had quite a rough time. And all I would ask up here is a nice, fat, comfortable cushion that I can curl up and go to sleep. Well, Peter said that was no problem, and the cat went in. Now, some time later, 3 little mice turned up. Now, he asked them the same thing. And they said, well, when they were down on earth, they used to love to watch the boys going around on these skateboards. And they thought, wouldn't it be lovely if they could have some little miniature skateboards made that they could get around and see the beauties of heaven? Well, Peter said it was a bit unusual, but he would see what he could do, and they all went to bed. Next morning, Peter went into the cat. How did you sleep? Well, the cat said, I have never known such comfort. I've had a wonderful night. And as for those meals on wheels you sent around, well, they were...
Now, talking about Redruth, I was in there a week or two ago, and I met a little couple I know. Oh, they was looking some worried. So I thought, well, they're looking a bit anxious. I'm going to find out what's the matter. It's isn't that you're inquisitive, but you like know, don't you? Well, she said, Mrs Rosewarne, we are a bit anxious. We're looking for a present for some friends for their golden wedding. Well, 'twas some lucky they met me, because, you know, I'm full of good ideas. So I said to them, have you thought about a little budgie? Well, they hadn't. Now, look, I said, what would be better than a golden cage and a little yellow budgie? Well, I left it with them, and I never heard more about it for some time. But when I met her again, she said, we did what you said, Mrs Rosewarne, and we had the budgie delivered to them on the day of their golden wedding. And a day or two later, she had a note from them. Thank you very much for remembering our golden wedding. The little budgie was lovely, but we would just as soon have had a chicken because there wasn't much cut on it. I don't know what make about lady drivers. My daughter-in-law started lessons, and the instructor asked her the first time he took her out if she'd read the highway code. She said no, she thought she'd rather wait and see the film. Well, eventually, she passed her test. Oh, I don't know, but she did. And she was out one day and she had trouble with the car. So she drove into a garage. Chap came out and looked at it. He said, Missus, didn't you know your battery was flat when you left home? She said, no, I didn't know what shape he was supposed to be. Then he said, your engine is missing. Well, she said, I know that was there when I left home. Another day, she went back to the garage and she asked for a dipstick. So the man said, well, of course you have one with pleasure. But he said, you only bought one last week. She said, I know, but that's no good. He said, what do you mean it isn't no good? What's wrong with it? Well, she said it wouldn't reach the oil.
This little boy was out playing in the garden one day and Daddy was cutting the grass. And all of a sudden, like these children do, about 4, he looked up and he said, Daddy, where did I come from? Well, Daddy wasn't quite prepared for the question there and then, you see. Didn't want to go into detail. So he said, you see that big boulder over there? The little boy said, yes. He said, well, I planted a seed under that boulder. And after some weeks, I went over there and I found you. Well, the little boy accepted that and he went on playing and that was it. But a few days later, he was out in the garden playing on his own. And he thought, I wonder if I planted a seed under a boulder, would I get a little baby brother? So anyway, he went in the tool shed and he brought out a seed and he put it under this boulder. A few days later, he couldn't wait to get out there and see what had happened. When he pulled the boulder back, there was a little frog there. So he said, well, I've got to try and love you because I'm your daddy. Now, another old couple that had been married for years and years, and one late morning the lady had a lot of washing to do, and when she looked out, it was a drizzly, miserable morning, she was some daisy. So, of course, she started complaining about everything her husband said or did. It was all wrong. She said, another thing about you, you're nothing like as romantic as you used to be. She said, that little couple who live opposite us, I noticed that young man gives his wife a kiss every morning before he goes to work. She said, why don't you do that? He said, I don't know the woman.
I know a lady who got a lovely little antique shop, and she was there last week, and a young man came in, and he opened a box, and he took out 12 beautiful silver snuff boxes. Oh, it nearly took her breath away. She hadn't seen so many for a long time. So she was a bit suspicious, and she said to him, where did you get them? Oh, he said, my granny gave them to me. So she said, oh, did your granny take snuff then? He said, no, she only took snuff boxes. Now, like lots of people in the West Country, I did take a few in for bed and breakfast. And a man came in the other night. He said, Missus, can you give us a bed and a bath? Well, I said, I can give you a bed, but I'm afraid you'll have to bath yourselves. I'm not going to start that. Many years ago, there was a young curate, and he hadn't had much experience. His first parish. And the vicar went on holiday. And this little chap was in charge of the parish. And after a couple of days, he was asked to conduct a funeral. Well, he went along to see the people, of course. And you know, when he got there, he was horrified. It was a very old person. But they were Methodists. They had Methodist origins. Well, he thought that was terrible to have anything to do with a Methodist. And there was nobody for him to ask anything. So he went home and he rang up the bishop. And he said, could you tell me, Bishop, is it all right for me to bury a Methodist? And the bishop said, yes, go out and bury so many of them as you can find. I met a little man last week, used to work with me, and he's retired now. So I said to him, how's retirement going? He said, I aren't retired. Oh, I said, I read in the paper you've retired. He said, Mrs. is the one that have retired. She got me up in the mornings making the tea. I'm cleaning the fire. I'm out fetching the papers. I'm doing the vegetables. He said, my dear Miss Rosewarne, I'm just killed. He said, my life is just one long honeydew. Well, I thought he was being a bit romantic. I said, you do mean honeymoon, dear? He said, no, I don't, Miss Rosewarne. I mean honeydew. He said, 'tis honeydew this and honeydew that.
Now, many years ago, this young man in Camborne wanted to go out to Canada. He had a job. He didn't have to go. His parents couldn't understand why he wanted to go, because in those days, people didn't go abroad so much unless they were unemployed, you know. Well, he always wanted to go to Canada, and out he went. And he got a good job out there, and he was very happy. After he'd been there about 3 years, he thought, well, now I've accumulated a nice bit of money. I think I'll go home and make sure my parents are all right, see my friends. Well, there was no airmail in those days, so it took a long time for the letters to get to and fro. Well, eventually he got a letter back from Mother. We are thrilled that you are coming home. But we think we ought to tell you there have been a lot of changes over here. We got a new doctor, and he's handing out this rejuvenating medicine. And we're all looking much younger. In fact, she said, I don't think you'll recognise me when you come home. And he thought, well, how stupid that he isn't going to recognise his own mother. Well, anyway, eventually the train pulled in Camborne Station. And this lady was there beside the porter, high heels, short skirts, with a pram. He said, that's never Mother. Well, anyway, when he got out of the train, of course, Mother came up to greet him with her arms held out. He said, well, Mother, you are looking wonderful. I must say, he said, I don't think I would have recognised you. He said, who's this in the pram? She said, that's your father. Father made a mistake and took a double dose.
I tell you what, they'd a think that we down here in Cornwall are dense. But tidn't we, you know, 'tis they. I read in the paper last week, London have got the densest population in the country. So 'tis no good for them to say no different. I got a friend, she don't like bed and breakfast people, 'cause she said you don't know who you're going to have. So she decided she'd take a lodger. Now she got some dear little boy. He'd never been away from home before. Well, of course, he didn't like to complain about nothing. And you know, the day he turned in, she bought a rabbit. And that boy had rabbit stew, rabbit pasty, rabbit pie, rabbit sandwiches. Oh, he wasn't very well told by the end of the week. And she was a bit worried. So she said, I believe I'd better get the doctor for you, son. He said, Missus, don't worry about no doctor. Go out and see if you can hire a ferret. This young couple, they rang up the vicar. We got a lot about the vicars tonight, haven't we? They rang up the vicar about having their little baby christened. So, of course, he was very pleased to do it and said he would visit them. So he went down to see them and had a nice chat with the father, and the mother was out. So he said, now, I take it that you are prepared for this big event. Oh, yes, he said, I think so. Missus have made yeast cake and heavy cake and sponges and Russian creams and tarts. Do you think we're all right? Well, the vicar said, that's very nice, but I didn't mean that exactly. He said, are you spiritually prepared? Well, he said, we got 3 bottles of whiskey and 3 bottles of brandy. He said, think that's enough, do we? His wife was a nice little woman, the vicar's wife, I mean. She said one day to a little chap that used to work for them in the garden, she said, you know, I can't help noticing when my husband is preaching, you don't go to church. But when the curate is preaching, you're always there. Why is that? So he said, well, madam, when the curate to say in conclusion, he to conclude. But when your husband to say lastly, he to last. Now, it was 3 o'clock in the morning up in this Irish pub, and a Mr. O'Reilly kept this pub. Well, he lifted the phone, and a voice, you could tell he was very, very drunk. He said, Mr. O'Reilly, what time do you open? He said, 10 o'clock, Paddy, and dropped the phone down again. 7 o'clock, the phone rang again. Mr. O'Reilly picked it up. It was this same man, sounding more drunk than ever. He said, Mr. O'Reilly, what time did you say you open your pub? He said, 10 o'clock, Paddy, but I'm not going to let you in the state you're in. He said, I don't want to be let in, Mr. O'Reilly, I want to be let out. I had a fright this morning. Little woman down the road came up running. She said, Mrs. Rosewarne, didn't you hear that bang? I said, no, dear, I never noticed nothing. She said, we've had an explosion, a little cottage down the road, nobody hurt. But the man and his wife were blown right through the roof. She said, it's the first time they two been seen out together for 15 years. Nice little woman she is. One afternoon this summer, I was down in her garden sitting down and we were having a cup of tea. And a man come to the woman next door. Well, I couldn't help hearing, you know, I wasn't trying to hear, but I couldn't help hearing, so he said, good afternoon, madam. I've come for the payment on your washing machine. She said, what do you mean, payment on the washing machine? Well, he said, you had a washing machine installed a few weeks ago, and your first payment is due. Oh, she said, I aren't paying nothing on that. You told me that machine would pay for itself in time. I went doctors last week. Well, you know, I do go up there quite a bit. And I said, well, while I'm here, doctor, I said, my memory, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, I can't mind nothing. He said, well, how long you been like that? I said, like what? Do we know the story about Redruth? Oh, well, I'll tell you. It's about Superman and Superwoman. Now, we don't very often hear about Superwoman, do we? Anyway, she wasn't very good at detecting places down below, you see. And she said to Superman, I wonder one day, could you take me up with you and waft around and explain how you know where you are? Well, he said, of course he would. So up they went. So she had her pencil and her book, you see, and after they'd been wafting around for some time, she came back and she said, now, Superman, where are we? Well, he put his arm right down through the clouds and felt around. He said, we're right over the Vatican.
I can feel the top of the Vatican. We're in Rome. Well, she made a note of that. Sometime later, same story, back again. Where are we now? We're right over the Eiffel Tower, he said. We're in Paris, we're over the Eiffel Tower, down the arm. So she made a note of that. Didn't come back for a long time. Next time she came back, she said, this is the last time. Where are we now? Down the arm went through the clouds. We're right over Redruth. She said, now, how do you know that? He said, because some beggar stole my watch.
One day I said to him, what you going to be when you grow up, dear? Well, Granny, he said, I don't know. He said, I thought I'd be a lollipop man. Well, I must say, I thought that was a bit strange for a little boy 11 years old. I said, how do you think that? Well, he said, they don't start work till they're 65. I don't know whether he's going to be very workish or no. I don't know what you'd all think about the common market. But I know a woman who went to France for a few days this year, and you'd think she'd been out there for years. She's given her husband slugs and snails. Well, he isn't looking very well at all to me. And while she was out there, she learned a few French phrases. And of course, when she got back Cameron, she never had nobody try them on. But one day last week, the coal man come. And she thought, I believe I'll see whether he can understand this. So he came in, he said, how much coal do we want, Day and Mrs.? She said, 500 weight, s'il vous plaît. He said, what's that then? Oh, she said, you Cornish people are so ignorant. We're in the common market now, and we should be using their phrases and their recipes. So he didn't say nothing, but he went out and brought in the first 100 of coal. He said, Mrs., how do you want this coal? A la carte or cul-de-sac? Do you know, I've told you before, I had to spend quite a bit of time up doctor's surgery, because you do save fire and light home. And I went up there last week. I thought it was a miserable old day, gone up surgery a minute or two. So I went in and I said, Doctor, I'm not sleeping very well. So he said, you're not? He wasn't a bit interested in what I was saying. So I said, I wondered whether you might be able to prescribe a bit of that twilight sleep for me. Well, he said, Mrs. Rosewarne, I'm sorry I can't, because he said that's only for women in labour. Well, I said, don't we Conservatives come in for a little bit of nothing? I met a little man down the street, and he'd to go to a chapel where they had a male voice choir concert the night before. And I said to him, did he go concert last night? And he said, no. Oh, I said, mind you, the handsome choir. No, he said, Mrs., I don't call a male voice choir nothing without few women in it. Now, I believe I told you before I had to go Darby and Joan Club. Well, we had a handsome speaker up there a week or two ago. He was telling us all about the dangers of alcoholic drink. And he thought he would illustrate it a bit. So he got a glass of water, and he took a tin from his pocket, and out of this tin he took a little ordinary earthworm. And then he took a little bottle from his pocket, and he said, now, friends, in this bottle is whiskey, and I'm going to do a little experiment. So first of all, he put the worm in the water, and the worm swam around happy as anything. Now he said, I'm going to add the whiskey. And he added the whiskey, and the worm dropped dead at the bottom of the glass. Now he said to us, can any of you tell me the moral of this story? And a dear old lady up in front said, yes, sir, I can. If we've got worms, we must drink whiskey. We've had an awful lot of rain. I was coming home from town one day, and I met a man I know coming up the road, but instead of walking on the pavement, he was walking in the gutter through all the dirty water. And I couldn't understand it. I thought, I believe there's something wrong with that old man. When he came up close to me, I said, you all right, are he? He said, yes, Miss Rosewarne, how? Well, I said, I was only wondering why in the world you're walking through all that dirty water. Well, he said, to tell you the truth, I've just dropped a piece of toffee. Well, I said, the toffee ain't going to be no good to you now, is it, dear? He said, I know that, Miss Rosewarne, but me teeth are in it. This little woman, she was delighted. Her granddaughter passed her driving test. And she went out for a ride with her in the evening. And they pulled up on the cliffs and they was watching the people on the beach, lovely June evening. And there was a girl out water skiing, you know, like they do, go on behind this boat, and boat going up and down the bay. And she was having a lovely time. And this old lady watched her for a long time. And she said, well, that little maid is wasting her time. So her granddaughter said, what do you mean, Granny, wasting her time? Well, she said, she's never going to overtake that boat. Now, we don't see a lot of tramps now, do we, like we used to do years ago. But there was a very old tramp, and he was very well known in Cornwall. And he could go to the same houses each time he came down, and they would all give him some money. Well, in his travels, he met a younger man who was just starting. And the little young one wasn't doing much business at all. So he said, now, look, I've been on the road for years. You come with me for a little while, and I'll put you up to a few tricks. Well, this younger boy was delighted. And he hadn't for about a fortnight, and he thought, now it's time for him to start off on his own. So they were going through this village, and they saw the rectory marked up, and he said, well, he can't come to much harm in there. So he said, now look, I want for you to try this place on your own, see how you get on. Well, the man went in, went up the drive, rang the bell. The vicar came out, hadn't in. The old tramp said, he's struck oil, he's gone in now, I suppose he's having a meal. Well, after a few minutes, out the young tramp came again. So the old one said, well, how did he get on then? What did they give he? He said, give me, they never give me nothing. He said, he got 10p out of me for the church organ fund. Now, up in Ireland, there was this lovely young man, a very devout Roman Catholic, and he used to go to church 2 or 3 times a week. But he had to travel over very rough ground, and a car was no use to him. So a friend said to him one day, you're doing a lot of walking, why don't you see about a horse? So he thought about it, and he went along to the stables and told the man what he wanted. Oh, he said, your luck is in today. We got the very thing here for you. We got a horse who's very religious. Well, the chap said, what do we mean? Well, he said, he won't move or do anything without an instruction, a text or something like that. So the man didn't believe it, but he said, well, tell me. So the chap in the stable, he said, look, to get him started, you've got to say, praise the Lord. And to stop him, you've got to say, hallelujah. Well, the chap could hardly believe it, but he got on the horse, and he wouldn't move. And when he said, praise the Lord, he started going across the fields, lovely. But he went on and was gaining speed, and he was going over towards the cliff edge. And the chap got a little bit agitated. So he said, well, I'll have to say this. So he said, hallelujah. And the horse stopped immediately with one hoof just over the cliff. And the chap was so relieved, took his handkerchief out from his pocket and wiped his brow and said, praise the Lord. She's a nice little woman. She ran after me yesterday. She said, here, wait a minute. I got a little bit news to tell you about a friend down the road. I said, now look, I don't think we ought to be repeating idle gossip like this. She said, I aren't going to repeat it, Miss Rosewarne. I'm only going to tell you once, dear. But have you ever noticed visitors always seem to call at inconvenient times? When things are tidy and I've dusted up a bit, nobody don't come. But sure enough, when I'm in a Strouth, that's when they'd all come. Now, I've got a friend, and she'd worked out a very good method. When her doorbell would ring, before she'd answer it, she'd put her coat on. And when she'd get out there, if there's somebody she want to see, she'd say, oh, lovely, I now come in. But if she don't want to see them, she'd say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm now going out.